Welcome back to my channel. I'm Joe with Smokin Joe's BBQ. On today's video, we're going to be smoking some Texas style beef ribs, but with one goal in mind. Do we need to remove the silver skin from beef ribs or not? Stay tuned. All right, let's get to trimming these beef ribs, at least one rack at least. As you can see, we've got quite a bit of silver skin on both racks. This one has a larger piece, so I'm gonna leave this one alone, and I'm gonna trim the silver skin off of this rack right here. And by the way, if you're wondering which nitrile gloves I'm using on my videos, these are the ones that I'm always using right here. These are from Clean Space. These are 5.5 millimeters thick, and they work fantastic. It's the same ones that I use in my food truck. If you guys are interested in purchasing a box or two, or maybe a case, check out the link below and grab a few of these, because these are some strong, I mean really strong nitrile gloves. All right, so I'm just going to move this rack aside, and we're going to work on this one right here. So obviously, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, the purpose of this video is to find out if we really need to remove all of this silver skin from beef ribs or not. Okay, I've done it both ways before. In fact, way back when I started smoking, I always used to remove the silver skin. It didn't matter what it was, I removed the silver skin. Now this is a fat pocket, which I'm going to leave on there, but all the silver skin and most of this fat, I'm going to be trimming it off. Try to stay just above that meat. You don't want to remove a ton of that meat. Look at this beautiful marbling. And by the way, these ribs are from 1855, and if you guys have not tried them, check them out. Man, this is some good quality beef. And one beautiful thing about 1855 is that if it's got the 1855 logo on it, that means it's upper 2/3 choice or greater. Okay, anything that scores less than that does not get the 1855 badging on the package. Actually, I thought this was fat, but it looks like we got some silver skin under here. So I'm going to take this off as well. I am using a Dell Strong fillet knife, which is really sharp. All right, that looks good right there. Now, one of the questions I often get is, do I remove the membrane off the back of beef ribs? I used to also remove them. I used to score them or make some cross hatches in there, but now I don't even mess with it. Number one, I believe that this membrane right here helps the beef ribs stay nice and juicy, because the fat or the juices inside the beef rib are not going to fall through. They're going to stay in the actual beef itself. It's going to stay nice and juicy. So this rib looks really nice. Now I've got some Wash Your Sister sauce right here. This bottle has been in my fridge for probably 20 years, just like the one in your fridge has. The label's even gone. Heck, it's probably expired, but I still have a little bit in there, so I'm going to be using it as a binder on the front and the back. Just a little bit, not a ton. Just like that. And yes, I season the back of the beef ribs as well. Now I'm going to season both of these racks exactly the same. I'm going to be using a seasoning from PS Seasoning called the BBQ General. This is a good SPG base for anything that you're cooking. This seasoning is fantastic. That's why I've got this really large bottle. Now, one thing I like to do is add a little bit more black pepper on top of the seasoning. Now this is just regular black pepper. It's not 16 mesh, because I know a lot of you guys cannot get 16 mesh where you're at. So we're just going to use some regular coarse ground black pepper. Pat that in. And we'll season the top. Get your sides. And a good coating of extra black pepper. All right, this rack is ready. All right, here's our rack with the silver skin still on it. A little bit of wash your sister sauce and the seasoning. All right, I'm going to finish seasoning the top of this rack, and I'll see you guys outside. All right, so I'm outside of my Bison Red Dog smoker. I refer to this bad boy as the Franklin and Goldie's Pit Killer. I got to tell you, if you guys are looking at any of those pits, check out Bison Smokers. The workmanship is unbeatable. All right, so for this cook, I'm going to be using the Texas Honey Mesquite from Gourmet Wood Products. Check them out at Academy Sports and Outdoors. They do have all of the popular flavors. Check them out. This is all I use anytime that I'm smoking in my backyard. All right, I've got 5 small splits of mesquite wood stacked up inside my firebox. I always use my grill gun from Grill Blazer. I got to tell you, even at my food truck, when I'm lighting up the 1,000-gallon pit, this is exactly what I use to light that up. Beats having to spend money on charcoal, etc. So let's light this wood. All right, I'm gonna let that burn down into coals, and I'll bring you guys right back. All right, so I've got my pit running at 250 degrees. Now, a piece of advice if you're gonna be smoking with mesquite wood is let those initial splits burn down into coals, and then go ahead and start feeding your splits. You're gonna get a ton of smoke on that initial burn when you start those splits up, but it does clear up, especially once you add those additional splits. So let's load up our ribs. So here are beef ribs with the silver skin on. Now what you want to do is point this thicker part, the end of the bones, towards that firebox. These are going to go all the way towards the back. And here are the ribs with no silver skin. I'm going to put those right here. All right, I'm going to maintain the temperature at 250 degrees for the first 4 hours, and I'll bring you guys right back. All right, guys, so we are at the 4.5 hour mark. And these ribs are ready to be wrapped. So these ribs are the ones that we took all the silver skin off of. Just simple, wrap it in foil, nice and tight. Don't need to put anything into the foil. Set these aside. And these are the ribs that we left the silver skin on. So these ribs definitely have more meat on them. But same process. Wrap them tightly in foil. They're going back in the smoker in the same exact spot. All right, I'm going to cook these for a couple more hours. Again, we're at the 4.5 hour mark. So at the 6.5 hour mark, then I will check the internal temperature. With my experience, I know that these ribs need at least 7, maybe 8 hours, but we'll check them at 6.5 and check the internal temperature and the tenderness. Stay tuned. All right, guys, so we are at the 6.5 hour mark. Let's get an internal temperature on these ribs. All right, so this front rack right here doesn't feel quite tender yet, but we're already sitting at 198.5 degrees, 199. Let's check that back rack. Same thing, it feels tender, just not as tender as I want them. We're at 196 on the back rack. So I'm going to give these ribs maybe 30, 45 minutes. I want them really nice and tender. As far as temperature wise, I'll let you know exactly what temperature these ribs are when I pull them off. Stay tuned. All right, so the ribs are ready and the total cook time was right at 8 hours. Now I did have them resting for 1 hour, but they're still plenty hot. Now this rack right here is the one that's got the silver skin on it. Now this rack right here is the one that I took the silver skin off. Now, one thing right out of the gate is this rack right here is super spongy. Can you guys see that? Really spongy. This one right here is a little bit more firm, okay? So that might be the silver skin kind of retaining some of that moisture, are my thoughts, but that's crazy because both of these racks were right next to each other, okay? And you can definitely tell the difference between both of these racks. Now from a bark standpoint, both of them have some really nice bark. The only difference again is that this one is a little bit firmer, but let's slice into them. Let's give them a taste and see what they taste like, okay? So let's take a bone off of this rack right here. Ooh, man, look at how tender these are. All right, I grabbed a different knife because that knife right there has got some serrations and it's really tearing this rib apart, but that's how tender it is. Look at this. Ridiculous tender. take a bone off of this rack right here. Again, tender as well. All right. Look at that. Both of them are super juicy. I mean, there's nothing wrong with any of these bones right here. The only thing I can say is that this rack right here is super tender. This one is a little bit firmer. It held in place, but it's still falling apart. Look at this. I mean, I'm barely touching it and it's coming apart. Let's give these ribs a try and see if we can tell a difference. All right, first up, the rack with no silver skin. Look at that, beautiful. Nice smoke ring. And by the way, the aroma that's coming off of these bad boys is absolutely amazing. Oh, here we go. That is so good. That's got Texas beef rib written all over it. That really good mesquite flavor. The bark is fantastic. I mean, it just falls apart. Really good. Now let's try the rib with a silver skin on. Look at that. Now this part right here, oh man, this rib is just coming off the bone. But this part right here is what had that really heavy silver skin that I didn't trim off. So here we go. Man, that rack is absolutely amazing as well. Really good smoke flavor from that mesquite. There is one subtle difference. On the rib with the silver skin on, it's juicier and more tender. The rib with the silver skin removed is firmer and not as juicy. And quite honestly, I like them both. If I had to take a pick, I would say I would eat the rib with the silver skin on. Again, the biggest difference that I see and taste is the rack with the silver skin on is just more tender and juicy. And you know, could that be the silver skin, or could it be that the rack was a little bit thicker? I don't know, but that's the only difference that I can tell. But they're both absolutely delicious. And quite honestly, my final thoughts are, with or without the silver skin, they're both really good. Now there is additional labor to remove the silver skin, so you don't necessarily have to remove it because you can't even taste it. The rack of ribs is super tender, so in my opinion, it really doesn't matter. But again, we do have a juicier, more tender rack of ribs with the silver skin on. I hope you guys enjoyed this beef rib video. Don't forget to check out the sponsors of this video and get a discount on many of the items that I use, from the gloves to the knives to the seasonings that I use on these delicious ribs. If this is your first time to my channel, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. Until next time, Joe at Smokin Joe's Pit BBQ. See ya.